My name is Liz Cortez. I'm going to begin discussing my perspective on the way Neil Gaiman induces fear in his story, The Ocean at the End of the Lane. First off, the story begins with a funeral, which already sets a sense of gloominess for the story to come. We are then introduced to the character, and mainly the character as a child, but we are not given a physical description of him or his name. This gives the reader the opportunity to imagine what the character looks like, and we connect and sympathize for him. And we become close to him when he talks about his sad and lonely birthday party and then the death of his kitten. Because as readers, we all have a similar sad experience in our childhood that really sticks out, and I think that kind of gives the reader the opportunity to connect and feel for the narrator. Feeling a connection with the character gives the reader the chance to put themselves in the perspective of his experiences and his fears. I think also Gaiman uses very descriptive details and creates a lot of tension in various scenes. The first one that we see is the death of the opal miner, when the narrator and his father find the minivan, and inside the minivan is the opal miner, and the description of how he looks like at death, his staring eyes, his blue lips and red skin, it really gives the reader a picture of this man who's just committed suicide. Then the narrator talks about a nightmare that he experiences, and it's simply not a nightmare. He actually wakes up and pulls out a coin from his throat, and that in itself is something that, I personally would never want to experience, waking from a nightmare only to find that, it wasn't just a nightmare, that like part of it actually happened. And then also the description of the manta wolf. This creature itself appeals to childhood fears. It isn't a typical monster. It's a cloth and red creature. It's faceless and rotting. And as children, we tend to experience fear of things like an oddly shaped tree creating a scary figure through our window. The scene with the worm in the sole of his foot was the most repulsive and a very tense scene. The thought of a parasitic creature invading your body is gross, and the description of him trying to tweeze it out while it didn't want to budge, and when it finally does and he pulls out the worm, we as readers feel like a sense of relief, but yet the narrator kind of doesn't even feel any fear over this whole experience. It's just something he thinks that happens, as like he says that just like when there was worms in the dog, he thinks it's just like a normal experience. But there is things that the narrator does fear. The narrator fears adults. He feels as if adults have this control, and this fear is manifested in Ursula Monkton, who herself is not a typical monster. She's described as being beautiful, and his parents and sister admire her. He, however, sees her for what she truly is. The author plays into fear of entrapment as the narrator finds himself with no escape from Ursula until the terrifying night where he is put in the bathtub and almost drowned by his own father. The tension builds up in this scene had my chest pounding with anxiety at the horrible idea of imagining his thoughts as his own father was trying to pretty much cause his death. I think that the story itself plays on various kinds of fears. Fears we experience as children are different from the ones we experience as adults. As children, our fears are more imaginative. We fear the shadows in the dark, monsters. We even fear some adults, as they represent power and size that as children we don't have. And the narrator actually experiences those fears. And we also see the fear in adults, the fear that caused the Oklahoma miner to commit suicide after owing his friends money, and the fear his parents experienced financially over their home, causing the mother to have to find a job and bring in Ursula Mountain. Well, that concludes my perspective on the way fear is induced in the story. Thank you.